Why do some people get 50 followers on social media and never grow a single follower past that? And why do some get hundreds of thousands, if not millions? Likewise, why are there some businesses that make millions of dollars and other businesses that just fail out the gate or never gain any traction or following? This is the question that I have been obsessed with my entire life, and I believe I've found the answer. I'm going to teach in this video how to build multi-million-dollar businesses as well as how to grow giant brands, all based on the same marketing theory. And that sounds like a strong claim from somebody, and it is, but I have done it myself twice, and like I said, I devoted my life to this, and I think I can do it. That's what this video will do. It will show you the theory behind building millions of dollars of value, but you will still have to act on it. It is not a panacea. You will still have to listen and act on it, but the theory will be there, and it will be interesting to anybody interested in this kind of stuff. So starting with the classic, we're going to use my favorite application to teach. It just takes one application to teach this. It's Notepad. And we're going to do some starter definitions. And for some people, this will be kind of like a crash course in marketing, but we're going to go into some pretty advanced stuff. So if you want to make money, you need people to buy your product and service. That's pretty straightforward, right? Starting pretty easy. I don't think I need to explain that. So the process of acquiring people to do that is called UA. UA is called user acquisition. Companies are not really focused on anything besides user acquisition these days for actual creation of value. If you want, the difference between building $1 million business and building a $10 business is the users that will pay for your product or service. And that is the basic definition to understand for that. So how do I get users to buy, or how do I get viewers to watch? This is the thing that people are obsessed about 24/7, 365 in their businesses. And in the upcoming world of AI, there will essentially be infinite content and businesses and ideas, etc. And if you can see this is already happening in text, where GPT is prominent in places like Twitter, where there's just enormous amounts of thousands of obnoxious threads, which means that we need to be able to figure out a way to cut through the noise. How do you create real influence? All right. To understand that, we're going to start with intermediate definitions, intermediate to advanced definitions. And we're going to do 3 definitions here, and then you're going to start to see how this works. So definition number 1 is the definition of an impression. You've probably heard that term, especially if you're a watcher of this channel, you know that term. That term basically refers to an impression as it's concerned with like social media. But these are not Google's definitions. These are my definitions of how I think about this in a marketing standpoint. So a impression is essentially a touch. It's an idea or feeling that is formed about a topic, a product, or a service. It's a single imprint, and not all impressions are created equal. Some impressions are more valuable than others. So social media doesn't really differentiate this. Social media will give you the number of impressions. Like your tweet, for example, might hit 500,000 people, but the quality of those impressions is something we're going to discuss in a minute, and it matters a lot for what we're talking about today. So you have to understand what an impression is. That means that I have managed to impress once upon you an idea or feeling. So if I make a tweet about my product, let's say my product is, the example I'm going to be using is a VR, like let's say it's a VR product, or the VR industry, like a headset or a VR headset. Then the first mention I make of that on a Twitter post that you read, where you've now been impressed upon that idea, that is one impression. Okay? That's definition number 1. Definition number 2 is an idea in marketing called the network effect. And the network effect is something called, it's basically a platform's relevance and the number of people on that platform will dictate in some sense how widespread a topic will become. All right, that's a little bit more complicated, so let's get into what that means. A platform's relevance, so let's take Twitter, for example, which is a relevant platform for conversations right now, and the number of people is hundreds of millions on it, will dictate in some sense how widespread a topic will become. Why? So let's take a topic like the VR industry again. The number of people on the platform that are talking about it, the network effect means that if you imagine and envision a circle, which we don't actually need to do because I can draw it. This is the second application that I use. If you imagine a circle and all of these people that are outside of it discussing this topic, okay, the more that there are discussing this topic that are feeding in to this idea, the bigger this circle becomes. And the more people that are talking about it, the more events that are created. Now all of a sudden there's conventions. Now there's more impressions. Now there's people talking about it. Now the media picks it up, right? And there's like a big person over here. This is like, let's say this is like a CNN or someone, okay? And now all of a sudden the circle is like this big because the circle, basically the circle adds to each time. All these people add their little circles and everybody keeps getting bigger and bigger. And the network effect eventually produces an enormous circle where formerly it just would have been one thing like this. Okay, just as a result of everybody kind of adding into it. You ever play that game? There's gonna be like 3 people that know this reference. There was a game on a browser, I think it was called Agario, where you had a little blob, and the blob eats other blobs, and the bigger the blob becomes, the more blobs it eats. That's basically the network effect. I did not have that in the script for this video, but it is actually a perfect reference. That's the network effect. All right, definition number 3. This is the last one, and that is the saturation effect. So the saturation effect says that it's a theory, again, this is my definitions, a theory that more impressions lead to more positive preferences or more likely purchases of that topic, product, or service. So what's the saturation effect? Well, the saturation effect is something we've known in marketing for a long time. It was demonstrated in 1968 by a person named Robert Zajonc, and it's called the mere exposure effect. So what the study showed was that you could expose somebody to the same idea and the same topic over and over again. And over time, the relevance of that topic and the sort of effect of that topic would lead that person to talk about that topic more, convert better on buying things around that product or things like that. So you probably have heard of the saturation effect in the sense of like the type of marketing that a very large company like Coca-Cola does, or the type of marketing that a big company like Fortune 500 does. They're using the saturation effect. They're basically hoping that they nobody's telling you right now. You might see an ad to buy Coca-Cola. Nobody expects you to buy that ad, that Coke off of that ad right there. But what they will do is they will impress that upon you. Remember we talked about those impressions over and over and over again until they know that at some point you'll be like, without consciously being aware of it, you'll just preference that. Maybe you're at a gas station. You have a choice between the two. And that conscious preference will be there. That's the saturation effect. And so what we're going to do to teach what I promised in the beginning of the video is we're going to combine all of these 3 into an actual set of actions we can do. And I'm going to show you how I've done this for 2 businesses and how you can do it. So to understand the next step, we have to understand what I said before, which is impressions are not created equal. So definition number 1 of impression, the idea of a touch or topic or product or service. Actually, impressions are, I would divide them into 3 different categories in terms of the quality of the impression. Okay, so the first is an untrusted, unverifiable source, right? So that means I don't know who this person is. I don't particularly like them, and I cannot verify that they are a person of authority. So that is the least quality impression, right? Just some random account on Twitter with 10 followers. You're not likely to trust that impression as much as you are the next impression, which is from a trusted source. Meaning, I trust this person. Sorry, that's actually number 3, because the next one is from a verifiable source. You do not personally relate to this person, know them, or like them, but you can verify that they are a person of authority. Maybe you're trying to research new viruses and you're talking to a virologist and you know that this person is a verifiable source. Great. That is a higher quality impression. Oftentimes that's enough to make people believe basically anything, actually. You can kind of just stop there. It's kind of scary how much a verifiable source like a doctor or like a expert marketer or somebody can convince you of something and you just believe it. But trusted source is next. That means I know, like, and trust this person, and that's the highest quality impression, which means like and they don't necessarily have to be verifiable. For that, these two are mutually exclusive. So the highest quality impression is your best friend telling you have to try this product, like it was amazing for me, and they give you a complete anecdote that might not even work, like some supplement or something, and you're like, okay, great, and you try that because you know, like, and trust them. That's the most likely that you're going to buy a product is from a trusted source. For this reason, that's why influencers are so powerful, right? Influencers are trusted sources, and sometimes sometimes they're trusted and verifiable. So a trusted influencer is somebody who has kind of won your heart over through a series of positive impressions to convince you they're either a great entertainer or they're a great authority on the topic. Hopefully, if you've been watching a lot of my videos, I have convinced you that I'm a trusted source when it comes to marketing. I have a bunch of experience backing me up. I'm also a verifiable source. You can look, oh, that guy sold 2 companies. He is currently working in the industry as an agency. He's able to talk about this stuff from a verifiable place, so I'm at least that. But to some people, I'll be a trusted source, meaning that if I did want to later sell you something, I don't, but if I did, I would have these things going for me, and my impressions would be quite high quality, like much higher quality than somebody that's coming in that would say that's untrusted and unverifiable. Okay? So now you understand the basic definitions, and if you're quick, you're probably already starting to figure out how you can kind of combine these things, but the actions are going to really be the thing that take this video to the next level. All right? So based on everything we know now, a person will buy something when in their mind they reach maximum saturation effect, aka they've received enough impressions of that product or service to believe it solves their problem. Why do people buy anything? Why do people do anything? They are always trying to solve a problem, even if they don't know what that problem is. Why do you buy a gym membership? Because your problem is you are not fit. People don't like you because you are the blob and you roll around, and nobody likes that. So you are going to purchase a gym membership. Why do people buy courses? Because they want to learn a skill to make more money. Why do people download and do premium service dating apps? Because they want to get a girl or boy. Why do people, on and on. Every single thing that is ever bought in this world, debatably that is ever done in this world, in an outward effect, is done to try to solve a problem that somebody has. So if I can give you enough impressions to convince you that I will solve your problem, you will buy my product or service. It's subjective how many it takes. Researchers have shown that it takes between 3 to 6 impressions about 15 to 20 years ago, and nowadays can take up to 10 to 12 impressions on somebody to make them buy. Now that's extremely interesting, and that is beyond the topic of this video, but let's just talk about it for a second because I just love this kind of stuff. Why is that the case? Probably it's because, we don't know, but probably it's because there are so many things vying for our attention today than there were 10, 15 years ago, that it takes a lot more impressions for something to cement in somebody's mind, just because you have so much BS that is going on. Why do people talk about meditation so much now? Because it's one of those practices that allows you to hyper-focus in this world where we have so many distractions. We have so many things vying for our attention. And you can even go back and read stuff like in Stoicism, where someone like Lucius Seneca talks about the amount of BS that was even back in Roman times 3,000 years ago. And now imagine we got phones, we got Twitter. So there's just too much stuff. So the impressions has to go up, and the amount of impressions has to go up to make people actually believe that this is going to solve their problem, because there's 50 other people telling them that it's going to solve their problem. All right. So if you understand this, you understand brands create millions of dollars of value or followers in 2 ways, right? The first is the performance marketing, and the second is ad marketing. So performance marketing means they are creating continual positive impressions of their product or service in places where people who are likely to buy it are. This is called demographics. And ad marketing, serving ads directly to relevant people. So on a certain platform, if you understand this, similar demographics have similar behaviors. So people that are between 16 to 36-year-old males, or 9 to 16-year-old females, or 5 to 7-year-old males. There are differences between these people, obviously. But generally speaking, if you are living in the San Francisco area in downtown, you're between 16 to 36, and you frequent 3 or 4 different locations like Whole Foods Are you already building the demographic in your mind of this type of person? They're probably a tech worker, right? They probably go to yoga. Right? We can build a pretty reliable demographic pretty easily of people. And the people always say like, oh, well, Google has all your data, Facebook has all your data, TikTok has all your data. That's true. It's actually not that hard to build a pretty convincing demographic of what people are likely to buy. So performance marketing just means that you're basically serving positive impressions to those people over and over again in the places where they are. And ad marketing just means you're serving ads to those same people, right? It's a little bit different because ad marketing is more direct. The objective of ad marketing is, hey, buy my thing right now. Whereas the objective of performance marketing is a little bit more complicated, and it means down the funnel, I expect that this number of impressions will lead to a conversion for you. If not, it will at least lead to you talking about it. So the smartest marketers are serving continual positive impressions in the places where their audience is most likely to live. And if you understand this, you understand how influencer marketing works, and you understand why my company exists, Novo. So Novo, what we do at Novo is we work with brands to do a combination of ad marketing and performance marketing. So we don't just serve ads to people. We don't just say, hey, influencer, talk about this product, because that will convert some sales, but you can do that through pay-per-click. You can do that through a lot of different ways. What we really focus on is performance marketing. Performance marketing, meaning we are serving positive impressions through influencers to those about that product or service, meaning we're looking for authentic influencers who are actually going to convert on that product and on that service. They actually believe in it. They actually love the product and service, and then they talk about it. And that creates this downstream performance marketing effect where ad costs go down because people don't have to have as many impressions to hear and actually buy your product. Conversions go up over time. Okay, so that drives down costs for companies and also increases conversions. So, okay, great, Devin. That's awesome that your company does that. And now I understand the theory of how you actually do this. I understand it's a combination of all these things, and I understand its impressions. But how the heck do I do it myself? You promised me you would tell me. Yes, I did. And I'm going to tell you. But before I tell you that, it's time for the secret call. We're 16 minutes and 30 seconds into a Devin Nash video. Thank you, everybody, for watching. This is the secret call. Please post a comment with the 1630 tag. If you're still here, I read every comment, and I just want to know that you're still here. I appreciate it. I got two things for you. Number one, patreon.com/Devin Nash. Usually I make these kind of videos, like really deep sort of marketing effect videos for the Patreon. I decided to put this one here on YouTube to see what would happen, and you can let me know in the comments if you like it. But for $5, you get 90 to 95 right now. I make about one a week of these videos. It's crazy value. You can also join the mastermind, which is a little bit more expensive at like $20, $25 a month, but you get a direct chat where I answer every single question. It's not like one of those, it's a Discord, and I'm there every single day answering questions, and we do a weekly meetup where we talk about things, and we have, it's just fantastic. I'm spending too much time on this, but patreon.com/Devin Nash. If you're interested in supporting me, I would appreciate it. And you can go to the Discord. It's also a fantastic free community, discord.gg/Devin. And if you are a brand and you want to look into this idea of influencer marketing, contact me at Novo. That's my company. Okay? Now, I'm going to do what I promised, and I'm going to show you the action through some specific examples. So if we understand all of the variables and the definitions that we put so far, well, then what we need to do is we need to create content, aka build a content marketing plan with the goal of creating maximum saturation effect in the most important network effect areas. And I'm going to show you exactly how I do this. So the example I'm going to use is I am a VR industry company and presenting as an expert, and I have a product. So I want to take my VR industry and I want to acquire users to buy that product, or I want to build a following of people. How would I do it? Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to choose two platforms with the highest network effect. I'm not going to repeat these definitions because it'll waste time, and I assume that you already understand them. Just go back in the video if you don't understand that. That increases my watch time too. Thanks. So two platforms, the highest network effect. Now for these two, I'm going to assume they are Twitter and LinkedIn. These are the places where I think that those customers live. I think that they're kind of on the bleeding edge. So I think there's going to be a lot of people that are interested in VR on LinkedIn that are professionals. I think there's going to be a lot of people that are kind of interested about the topic on Twitter. And maybe my tertiary, so like my tertiary meaning like my third, maybe that'll be articles or maybe even something like VR chat if we want to get specific. Maybe I want to like live there. Though that's people who've already bought VR stuff, so maybe I don't like that so much. So articles, yeah, just like finding. So basically, the question you're trying to answer here, since we're talking about action, is where does my demographic live? Your demographic, like we said before, is going to basically spend time doing in mostly the same areas. So if I'm targeting that person from that former example of the person that lives in downtown SF that is shopping at Whole Foods, I obviously probably want to do something related to Whole Foods or health, or maybe they watch a certain podcast because they're interested in that sort of stuff. For example, a lot of these like life hack type of people will watch, because I'm one of these people, will watch stuff like Peter Attia. They might watch Andrew Huberman. These are names that probably sound all familiar to you if you're in this field like I am. They might watch Rhonda Patrick. Okay, so what if I target all three of those podcasts with the same ad? And now I've made 3 positive impressions, and I'm maximizing my saturation effect in a network where those people live. So the first question to ask yourself is, where does my customer actually live? Where do they spend their most time? For this VR industry example, we are assuming that they live on Twitter or LinkedIn. That may not be the case with this. I'm just taking a guess, and you'll understand the concept from here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a secondary Twitter account, and I'm only going to follow VR topics, influencers, etc. I'm also going to do this on LinkedIn or whatever platform I'm going to be on. Okay. I'll probably download TweetDeck and plug in that account. And now what I'll see is basically a read and a feed of everything that's going on in the VR industry. And I mean, I'm going to follow dozens, if not hundreds of people, every authority on this topic. And I'm going to get an idea over the weeks and months of basically trying to understand what the trends are and the top topics in this place. Then on my main account, which is going to be my brand account, or I should say brand account and accounts, right? Because you're also going to have like LinkedIn accounts and stuff like that. If you look at my Twitter, for example, my Twitter is structured as a brand account. What does that mean? So that means that if I go here and you go look at my profile, you can see that I have all of my titles here, that this is a professional account. I don't post like personal thoughts on this or anything. This is an account that's objective is to, you come to this, you'll probably get informed on recent issues and stuff like that. Then I have a very clear post right here that's pinned and says where to find me. And it shows my company, it shows my LinkedIn, it shows my Patreon, it shows everything, my YouTube, all that stuff. Basically the main links that I want people to go for. And when I talk here, I talk about marketing concepts, I talk about things related to the esports industry, things related to the gaming industry, stuff that I am personally interested in and am personally working on. That's my brand account. So that's your brand account. You structure it in the same way. And then you use that brand account and that secondary account in tandem, and you go into every Twitter thread that is relevant, every LinkedIn thread, every article that's relevant. You comment, you post, you live there, you post ads, you expose, right? You get that saturation effect. Now, sometimes you'll need money to do this. Oftentimes you don't. Plenty of people have built hundreds of thousands of followers off of just doing this constantly. It's called hand-to-hand combat. You go in and you just post threads, people follow you, and you start to you move from an unverifiable source to a verified source to a trusted source through the process of posting valuable content on these topics, on places where these people live. And now what will happen is, like, let's look at someone that's like really interesting. Like, this is a person who's been like really coming up in the self-improvement industry. And that's a guy named Andrew Huberman. Andrew Huberman is a Stanford research scientist neuroscientist who talks about a lot of like self-development type of stuff. Could be everything from meditation to like better sleep to how stuff like nutrition affects your body. This was a relatively unknown person even like 4 or 5 years ago. Basically, nobody knew who this was. And he's now a person that has this podcast called Huberman Lab, which is one of the top podcasts there is now and is getting tons and tons of press. How he did this was he did what we're talking about in the field of self-improvement and sort of like human optimization. He basically created an effect through the podcasts are a great place to do this. And it's not just like Twitter and LinkedIn. Podcasts are a great place to do this because Huberman not only created his own podcast, but also started going on all of the relevant podcasts that were in his field. So he went on Rhonda Patrick. He went on, I believe he might have been on Joe Rogan, which is there's a lot of like health type stuff that gets covered there. There's a lot of other stuff that gets covered there, but that's a big one. I believe he was on Joe Rogan. Tim Ferriss. I'm sure he's been with like Jocko Willink. Like all these names are going to be people that you know if you are Peter Attia, if you are in this space. So what happens as a person I constantly consume this self-improvement and this sort of like human optimization type content, I just start seeing Andrew Huberman everywhere. And so like the saturation effect is that I've gotten 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 impressions of this guy. I've probably gotten hundreds of impressions of this guy just over and over again, seeing these people seeing him on my YouTube feed, on YouTube Shorts. He was able to create that deliberately. Now he's not everywhere, right? And there will be people listening. This is what's so interesting. This is what you really have to understand about this concept. There will be plenty of people listening to this video that have never heard of Andrew Huberman, and that's fine because you just don't inhabit the spaces that I inhabit, and I don't inhabit the spaces that you inhabit. Some of you will be very familiar, and you did it through the same method I did. The point is, though, that Andrew Huberman doesn't need to have those impressions with all those people. The objective here isn't to convert 7 billion people to using your product or service. I think a lot of businesses and a lot of content creators make the mistake of trying to do that out the gate. And they say, well, to become the most popular possible, I need to appeal to everyone. No, you don't. You don't need to appeal to everyone. All you need to do is you need to live in the places at the maximum amount of impressions possible that these people live. And that could be 2 or 3 places. It could be 2 podcasts. It could be 1 website. It could be Twitter. It could be a local retail place that you are. You just need to live where your client is. That's the most important thing you need to do. And then you just forget everything else. And the people that build multi-million-dollar brands are hyper-focused on being where their customer is and maximizing that saturation. So in this example of creating the VR industry expert product, what I'd basically do is I'd just go live where those people are, and I would post as much valuable content and saturate myself as much. I'd put ads. I'd do, and I'm going to give you a couple bonus things that you can do that will make this even more effective. And basically my goal is to saturate that and then let the network effect do the rest. Okay? That's how you do it. So let's give some bonus stuff. Just a couple other things you can do. Competitor analysis. So if you see someone in your field that's doing this really well, look at what their network, look at their networks, right? Number 1. And then look at their saturation effect. So how are they doing it? Are they creating shorts? Are they creating YouTube posts? And those YouTubes are existing everywhere. Are they doing a lot of what we're going to talk about with number 2, which is collaborations? And it's a major way that this exists. That it vastly expands network effect. What are they doing, right? And then you can use that to inform yourself better to be able to go after it and do it yourself. Number 2 is collaborations. So to bring up that Andrew Huberman example again, he did absolutely tons of collaborations with tons of other people that expanded his network effect and saturation effect to those demographics. Who can you collab with that will increase that? One of the big mistakes I see a lot of content creators do is that they often collab with people that are not within their demographic. And so this basically just completely irrelevant. Like if you ever wondered like on a live streaming service like Twitch, why raids and hosts are typically ineffective, well, if it's 2 totally separate themes and totally separate demographics, none of those users are going to be able to convert to that content, right? So that's one of the reasons why collaborations often don't work. But if you collaborate with, and so it's so funny too, because it's such an important concept here. Most people are hesitant to collab with people that are their direct competitors. They say, oh, I don't want to collab with that person that's creating exactly the same content that I am doing, or I don't want to collaborate with that other marketer guy because he's a marketer guy, and then people will just follow him. But that's actually exactly what you should be doing, because those are the people that are listening to that person are the exact same person that would be willing to listen to you. And so this is why that feeling of scarcity in people that are content creators or business owners never works. It's always everyone eats. That's always the right answer. You don't ever want to you don't ever want to avoid collaborating with people that are your direct competitors. You always want to collaborate with your direct competitors and tell them all your success secrets. Those are the people that are most likely going to convert up and follow you. This is a big mistake that a lot of people make when they're thinking about collaborations. They don't do it because they're just afraid that those people will cannibalize and they'll eat them. But you should always be pressing to get better, and you should never think of your competitors in that way. Collaborations are really valuable for people that are the same. And the third is storytelling. We've talked about this a lot in a lot of videos, but the quality of your impression and the quality of your saturation per impression is going to be dependent on the story you tell around it. So if you are telling a more interesting narrative and a more interesting story, like for me, when I started this video, I thought that it was a pretty interesting narrative that I would tell you this is going to build millions of followers and millions of dollars of value. You're now nearing the end of this video, and hopefully I've delivered on that. Maybe I haven't, but I think the story was pretty good. So I came in with that instead of coming in with like, this is an advanced marketing concept that will appeal to 0.001% of people, right? Again, but I don't really care about that. I'm not trying to create a YouTube channel that produces 7 billion followers. I have no illusions about that. I'm just trying to create something that's interesting to me and the people that are like are just like, man, it's my favorite thing to do in the afternoon to sit down and listen to 35 minutes of network effect and saturated. You are my people, right? that are here. So that's the kind of storytelling that I'm doing for you, because I do believe this stuff actually has that storyline, and I'm going to try to tell it the most interesting story as possible to maximize the saturation effect of those impressions. And that is what you should do with everything that you post, right? It's not just blind content. You have to say, why should somebody care about this? Why is this storytelling so interesting and so and going to be so engaging for a person to up that quality of impression? Okay, so that is exactly what I would do. Hopefully I've given you enough information to structure a plan for yourself to be able to create this kind of outcome. There's probably more to it, but this is the basics of the idea of network and saturation effect, which I love. Like now that you know these concepts, I encourage you to kind of go out into the world and look at what, like, you kind of just look at each influencer or each business and figure out how they're doing this. And everybody has a strategy, and good marketers understand the strategy and have it actually written out for their businesses. And I would encourage you to kind of find interesting examples of these effects in the world and these really high quality impressions. And if nothing else, maybe you never use this information, but you can kind of see how the whole world operates and presents to us. Cool. So I hope you like these videos. Please leave a comment if you did or didn't or whatever, and I will read it. Thanks, everybody, and I'll see you again next time. Bye.